Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever this finds you. How's everybody doing? I'm Sean from How to RPG. Saturdays with Sean is where I talk about tabletop RPGs, events, news, games, whatever's going on, commentary about the hobby. Yeah, so we've got a few things to talk about this morning, where I am this morning, which is this morning. We'll see if we can get through all of them. I think we will. All right. So the first one that I want to bring up is... Oh, why do the websites keep wanting to do that? What's up, Aaron? What's up, Demon Grinder? Players push for metric system in the new evolution of D&D. So if you didn't get the memo, Dungeons and Draggers, should be a new game. What's up, Wayne? Morning. The new evolution due in 2024. People are talking about metric system. Us Americans. Metric system? What? Crazy talk is that? That's like changing the dollar. What's morning, Lucas? One thing I did not realize. Listen to this stat right here. Look at this craziness. This goes to show you how much the United States, how open it is to change. Wish this would stop loading and doing things. This is not where it says it. Here we go. 94.7% of the world uses the metric system by population, with only the USA, Myanmar, and Liberia using imperial. Herman, hey, good morning. Hold on. Gonna have to turn it up, man. Unless you got one of them electric mowers. 94.7% uses metric. That's insane. Like, I knew we were a minority for sure, but it's just amazing that, you know, we're in the buckets of Myanmar and Liberia for the imperial system. Wow. Thoughts? Go into metric? Can we do it? I don't know. Is it hard for us? Especially in D&D? Like, we're bright people, right? Role-playing gamers. We could do this. Or is it a matter of, well, we don't want to make everybody upset. You know, all the grognards that don't want to change. So we'll meet them halfway and we'll just change everything to squares. So all the spells instead of feet are all done in squares. 6 squares. If this person is within 1 square of you. What do you think? I could see that happening. Because I got to think. I'm just spitballing here. Jeez, these things are... My glasses are terrible. I'm just spitballing here. But I'm going to guess there's a few people at Hasbro that probably aren't big fans of turn into metric. Can you imagine that? calculating the distance in kilometers and meters, calculating liquids and alchemical checks using liters. What? I don't even know what a liter looks like. Do we sell things in liters here in America? I spent time in Europe, folks. It was like the Deutsche Mark, and gas came in per liter, and I would get, gas coupons in for gallons, or maybe it was liters. It was probably liters, but my brain was how many miles per gallon, not miles per liter. Crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy talk. Standardized movement for combat and distance from targets for spells. Here we go. Standardized weight and height for characters when interacting with the world. Are stones metric? They are, aren't they? They gotta be, right? A stone. 3 stones. I heard an English person on TV talk about their weight in stones. My wife's like, I don't even know what that is. Like, how heavy is that? Hey, Alexa, how much does a stone weigh? How much are 2 stones? Yes, it's going to be chaos. Total chaos. Crazy. I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard anything so absurd in my entire life. For us Americans to go to metric? Oh, come on. I don't get it. Assist dungeon masters in calculating strength and dexterity-based checks that need to factor weight, height, or depth into the DC and outcomes? I think stone is some ancient imperial measurement, says Phil in the chat. It's got to be, right? But I think a stone is still metric, right? It might be an imperial, like maybe they did the stone is a thing that was originally imperial, but they changed the stone and converted it to metric. What is a stone weight? Stone unit. The stone or stone weight is an English imperial unit of mass equal to 14 pounds. The English are even more confusing. What is wrong with them? Good job, Wayne Peacock. He had it nailed down. 14 pounds. Probably didn't even Google it. Eric Martin, morning. The stone continues in customary use in the United Kingdom and Ireland for body weight. Only body weight, though. Well, I guess I'll probably predict him by approximately 12 stones. But here they got the conversion, 1 pound. So 1 stone equals 6.35 kilograms. Look at, I'm telling you. What are they going to do next? What is Wizards of the Coast, those crazy people in Washington State, going to do? Morning, Dorigo. 4,000 signatures. It's been a petition. The future of D&D is wide open, and a new evolution of the core rulebook set to release in 2024. A group of players have started a petition advocating for a metric version of the popular RPG, garnering more than 4,000 signatures at press time. How many of those 4,000 are Americans? Come on. Metric is a D10 system. It's radical. It's radical, Phil. Don't be a radical. So this is the petition. This is what it reads right here. This is all in italics, so this is what it says. September 2021. Previous editions, including the most recent 5th edition, the game has exclusively used Imperial system without any support for conversion or calculation of the metric system. 0. You can't Google any of that. It's got to be in a rule book. Don't make me go and find out how much a A foot is in metric? Come on, people. While we recognize the game is designed by a U.S.-based company, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have already created foreign language versions of 5th edition, which converted all numerical systems to metric. What? Wait, hold on a second. We have already created foreign language versions of 5th edition, which did convert all numerical systems to metric? I did not know that. So what's the problem? So do we have both? I'm confused. If you don't know who I am, that is all purely sarcasm. Do we go to metric? Do we not go to metric in D&D 5th edition or 5.5 or whatever the next iteration is in 2024? I don't know. Will it affect my gameplay? No. Will I be so upset that I'm never going to play 5.65, whatever it is? No. Of course not. I'll play. Is it that big a deal? I don't know. But think about all the games that we play. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a lot. Star Wars. Star Wars, I thought, did meters. Saga Edition. Wizards has done it before. I think all I got to say is I don't want my role-playing game to be in English or in metric and then everything else be in Imperial. I don't want to do it. Can we just switch it all over? Can we just switch everything over? Like Wizards of the Coast, RPGers, can we take it to the hill and get it all changed here in America? Can we? I mean, I want to be able to abstract things. How to RPGs going to be how to play RPGs in some way, shape, or form. And there's been videos that have been done where people have drawn out 5-foot squares. I'm okay doing 3-meter squares, 2.5 meter squares. What the hell? I don't even know what they look like. Is Twilight 2000 metric? Phil, not if it's got United States maps in it. I don't know, honestly. Military maps, Imperial. Pretty sure they actually have metric and Imperial in them, but most of them are done in Imperial. Everything's done in, if you're in the United States Army, you're not doing things in metric. You're doing things in feet. Are we doing feet? We're doing feet, yeah. Distances in feet, inches. So the maps are created by a governing body here in the U.S. I can't remember if it's the geography or what. I don't know who it is. Military maps are specific. Like the author, the governing body on their maps. It makes them official, right? Military's got to have something official. You just can't pull a map off the local gas station. Can you even get a map at a local gas station anymore? Lucas says it's metric. I suppose it could be. I don't know, honestly. In the world, so it's funny. So even if you have, I'd have to double check. It's been some time since I was in the military. But I got to think that if you're, so the game Twilight 2000, what we're referring to, which is the kind of World War III occurs, hits Europe. And it's kind of based out of Sweden and Poland. Both use in metric. If you've ever been to Europe, some of our listeners are from Europe. Everything's metric. Kilometers. How many kilometers? How many meters? Kilos. You know what? The only thing Americans probably relate to for metric is the kilo. And that's only if you're a major drug lord. But so going back to the maps thing, the maps I think are in Imperial, and then obviously when you're on the ground, all the signs are in metric. I've got Twilight 2000. I haven't looked at it in that depth. Even when you're now in the military, when you do fire a weapon, small arms, things are done in meters. So you go to the firing range, everything's done in meters. You know, the farthest out it used to be for an M16 to qualify would be 300 meters. And you'd have targets at 50, I think 150, 50, 100. I don't remember. 200, 300, 250, 300. So the U.S. military uses metric 155 millimeter, right? Artillery rounds. Now, when I was in the military back in the day, we still had 8-inch artillery howitzers. Those were a carryover from like, shit, I think it might even go back as far as the Korean War, those damn things. And they were 8-inch. Well, and even I think the Navy uses 12-inch guns, 24-inch guns. I mean, they're inches. Let's ditch this topic. Next one. Chaosium acquires the Doll's House online resource for Call of Cthulhu. I didn't know this was out there. I don't think we ever used it in a die roll in that other podcast that I do. But I thought this was interesting. Chaosium. I've known Chaosium to put the screws to people when it comes to Cthulhu, which is a little perplexing to me because I thought it would fall under the public domain. So I'm not sure what ground they have to stand on when it comes to some of this stuff, but they do it nonetheless, and they negotiate it. I had a personal friend, some of you might know, that had it out with Chaosium, and it worked out, and they negotiated it. But regardless, I kind of found it interesting because not only, they could have came to this guy and said, hey, you got to close that shit down. But instead, they not only bought the online resource, they hired the guy who did it, which I thought was kind of interesting and neat. I mean, why not, right? Because I don't take a lot of RPG publishers to be forward-thinking enough to get into the digital space on their own. I mean, the closest thing you might be able to kind of talk about is like Free League's support for the Foundry virtual tabletop, where they've put out, official Free League modules for Foundry. I mean, even Wizards of the Coast really doesn't have a huge digital presence at all. I mean, DM's Guild is not theirs. That's One Bookshelf's. D&D Beyond is not theirs. That's Fandom's. So this is a good tool. I haven't used it, but the next time I play it, I will. They're not going to change it. There's no noticeable difference for existing users of the site. And then with Lee, who is the Lee Carnell, created it in 2016. So with Lee, we plan to keep improving the features and functionality of the resource to the benefit of Call of Cthulhu gamers, said Chaosium Vice President Michael O'Brien. Hey, if you can't do it yourself, buy it. It'd be, this, who is this guy, right? Lee joined Chaosium as an in-house software developer. So Lee Carnell, he's probably doing this for nothing. Has had it out there, keeping it up to date if it's had to have changes. But think about it. I mean, Call of Cthulhu hasn't really changed much. And if he programs it well enough, the changes from 6th to 7th is probably minimum in logic in the app. But Chaosium doesn't have any digital presence. This is their shoe-in with this could be their D&D character sheet. D&D Beyond. Didn't D&D Beyond start out as a character sheet before they went all hog wild with everything else? And let's face it, everything else is just a digital version of the books Wizards did. So, can Lee, with his knowledge, do the same for Chaosium? I don't know. But that's, not huge news, but interesting nonetheless. We haven't talked about it. We haven't talked about it on the other show. We haven't talked about it on this one. About the 50th anniversary editions in 2024. And then the Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse in 2022. There's already mention of Spelljammer monsters on Arcana Unearthed on Wizards of the Coast. I'm not a Spelljammer guy, never was. As I was, if they did everything in the world, Spelljammer is probably the least interesting to me out of everything. Like, I don't even know if there are other role-playing games that rank less to me than Spelljammer. Now, if you are a Spelljammer fan, great. I just, it's not my jam. I never got into it. It never appealed to me. To me, it was like, hey, you want to play D&D? Play D&D. Hey, you want to play science fiction? Play Traveler. Play something else. Play Stars Without Number. I don't know. I just never thought of like creating my elf and putting them in space. Space elves. I don't know. Hippos. Space hippos. But they brought it up at D&D celebrations. I mean, it's kind of the deal. It's been... 5th edition's been around for a little while. Everybody knows these cycles. The people that don't know too much about these cycles are the individuals that started out with 5th edition. Now, they may know about the cycles, but they haven't experienced it yet. And there's a lot of gamers playing 5th edition. I'm going to get to that in just a second. So, it aligns with the 50th anniversary. I mean, if I were a company and we're coming up on a 50th anniversary for a product that we put out there, I'd say it's probably a prime opportunity to either do a limited edition, special edition, repackage it, leather covers, whatever. It's an iteration, they say. It's not going to be a completely new game, so that's why there's talks of 5.5. Many of us have been through the changes over the years. Something to fire up the edition war is over. Here's the thing. If you're a 5th edition player, hey, guess what? Your game's not going to change. Okay, let's just calm down just a bit. If you're playing 5th edition and you want to continue to play 5th edition, guess what? Nobody's going to come and take your 5th edition books. They're not. I know, hard to believe. It's true. They're not going to come and get your 5th edition books. The gaming police are not going to come and seize your 5th edition books. Now the question is it become old school? Will it become old school? I used to love Dead Game Society. Great group of guys and women that would play out-of-print games. So when something like this would happen, let's say the latest edition of Call of Cthulhu would be released, or the newest version of D&D would come out, and the version prior became something under their umbrella, right? Because it was no longer printed or published or supported. That's a dead game, quote unquote. So they would embrace that, and it was kind of funny. Anyways, they're gonna splinter it, right, to some degree, because they say every time an edition comes out, you're going to have fans that don't switch over. But with every edition that's ever come out, there has been more sales on it. Even 4th edition outsold 3rd edition, at least the first few print runs. here's the tricky thing. And, Hasbro and Wizards may not care, right? But, some of there may be a lot of fans that don't play the game, right? 4th edition I played, I got all the 3 core books in a slipcase, and I never played it once. Not a single game. 1 shot, 1 hour, nothing. Never created a character. And eventually unloaded my 4th edition slipcase. But for a sale, I pulled out my wallet and forked out some money for it. So when it comes out, it'll sell. It'll sell more than prior editions. At least the first print run will, for sure. The question is how many people are going to be playing it and how quickly. We haven't seen the size of the population that 5th edition has transitioned to another edition yet. So if they can get a majority of them over, and more folks entering the hobby, getting on that bandwagon because they're coming into that space, that, I don't know, space age, like whatever that may be. Great. And you know what? Here's another thing. If you don't play 5th edition, or you're not a big D&D fan, big deal. Not a big deal. I have to say the last book that I picked up from Wizards of the Coast, I think was Curse of Strahd. I don't have a lot of interest in the most recent books. I don't, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Rime of the Frostmaiden was the last book Wizards of the Coast put out that I purchased. Mordenkainen presents Monsters of the Multiverse. Going to be in 2 versions. The alternate cover, of course. Slipcase of the Rules Expansion Gift Set. The Rules Expansion Gift Set is going to be made up, I believe, of Mordenkainen and a few others, right? Mordenkainen, Volos, I think, and something else. Oh, and I linked to it, and it doesn't say anything. That's great. But I think it's Volos, Mordenkainen's, and one other book. Other new D&D books. Panel confirmed 2 classic D&D settings are coming out following Ravenloft. Both will be in new formats. So now it's, they're speculating Spelljammer. Who knows what the other one's going to be. And then another classic setting is due in 2023. So 3 settings? That's a lot. Which is going to be interesting because you're going to get a setting in 2023 for the 5th edition version, and then 2024 is going to be a new game. Tasha's. Is it Tasha's, Lucas? Tasha's, Mordenkainen's, and Volo's Guide? No. Really? Is Tasha's a monster book? So in the new... So I bring this up not to debate whether it's a good move, bad move, whatever, but what is it going to look like? Wizards of the Coast has put out job advertisements, Dungeons and Dragons and digital underneath it. There's a lot of technical positions that say be a part of the next iteration of D&D, join our team. So the talk is going to be definitely digital. Going to be definitely digital. But we all know Wizards' track record for digital hasn't been there. even I heard Magic. Now, I'm not a Magic the Gathering guy, but I thought when Magic came out with their digital product, it was good. But I thought maybe the latest or most recent is still kind of buggy. I don't know. Look at my hair. This is crazy. I don't know why I'm wearing a hat, but it's going to make my hair even look worse. But let's face it, with digital and the pandemic, it's just taken off. The digital space. I haven't played a face-to-face game since the pandemic. Since February last year. So easily 18 months, right? What's it going to look like? There's DM's Guild. Big component. Big component as far as like old stuff, right? Which means 5th edition could go to PDF. Potentially. A lot of people complain about the way Wizards of the Coast handles PDFs, especially with their most recent edition. They just don't. I know that they have always had a very, if it's in PDF, it can be pirated. So that's that old music mentality was and probably still is a very big thing at Wizards of the Coast. I don't know what the new CEO, what his vision is of it. You know, people are like, man, can you just put a code in the book so I can get a PDF and digital copy, even if it's at D&D Beyond? Like, come on, why do I got to pay, $30 for a PHB, and then I got to pay another $30 for a PDF or digital version, or even something from Roll20 or something along those lines? It's all about the money, man. Those money-grubbing pigs. How dare a corporation be profitable at my expense? But they need to get into the digital space. They can't be giving money to places like D&D Beyond and DM's Guild forever. They want parts of that. That's take every sale that they ever do through any of those platforms. They'll get a licensing fee, but if they're still giving a sliver off, they want the sliver. They haven't executed well on it. GleeMax, man. I've brought it on a live stream before. GleeMax. If you're young enough and haven't explored GleeMax, I'm telling you, they tried to erase that from history. Like, you cannot find very much stuff out on the web about GleeMax. You can find it. It's just it's not even GleeMax, because GleeMax came out after Gen Con, when Chris Perkins and what's his name got on stage at Gen Con and said, hey, we're going to do this great digital thing where you can build your character and change the look of it and rotate it and, outfit it with certain things. Like, it was, the video is out there, but that video was done before that digital initiative was named GleeMax. But it never saw the light of day. Now, with that digital version, or digital initiative, I should say, one of the developers that was heading that up got into some controversy. Like, I think he had passed away, and the nature of that person passing away, I think it was either suicidal or murder or something, like it wasn't somebody just passing away from a medical condition or something along those lines. And since that person was the kind of spearhead of it, I don't know how much that person missing from the initiative impacted the vaporware, or what would become vaporware. So people are talking about the virtual tabletop space, and that how people should be, crapping their pants, or what happens? What do we do? So I got tapped into this. And thread for TTRPG folks, educated speculation about the future of online tabletop gaming virtual tabletop, etc. What do you think? So the Dread Apparition, Panzerline, POC Gamer, at POC Gamer, is subtle but quiet news and should be unpacked and prepared for the larger tabletop role-playing game industry outside of D&D. And by the D&D adjacent industries who are operating in the digital realm. Why? Because this, pop-ups everywhere, because this is likely to be highly disruptive. Highly disruptive? Maybe, I guess. Goes on and continues. Now, first and foremost, I have no inside eye on D&D or Wizards. All right, I can respect that. How many of us really do? So this is educated speculation. Hey, welcome to the club. Based on observation and larger hobby, my suspicion is that Wizards are going to move forward. Would it be Wizards are or Wizards is? Wizards is going to move forward with a VTT Plus system for D&D. And by plus, I mean that they are likely going to release a D&D branded and subscription-based virtual tabletop, and what is currently D&D Beyond is part of it, a streaming aspect, and an Obsidian Portal-style game wiki for DMs. Why do I think this? Because the people who run D&D are intelligent and have spent the last 5 years watching D&D develop and go to places they'd only dreamt of in previous editions. And they've been able to watch the technology and software mature without having to spend money on it. In fact, they made money by licensing them to provide D&D game materials. Licensing. That should be a common theme with Wizards and D&D. D&D lunch boxes, mugs, hats, shirts. Like they should have a merch store that is crazy silly. So now it's time to bring it all in-house, and they know that the fan base will go for it. D&D is a hobby unto itself, and official materials are hot. Plus, when they launch, they can dramatically peel back the services that third-party providers have access to, which makes their official product all the more enticing. So the immediate fallout is likely hard times for Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, and other VTT providers and support sites. For the larger TTRPG industry, those dips could be catastrophic if they result in dramatic downgrades in services on VTTs, or worse if they go under. So this is something that the larger industry needs to watch closely, and is something that we all need to plan for. And more to that point, have alternative means ready to continue supporting our fans. Stock up on the cans of soup. Head to the basement. Head out to the fallout shelter. Oh, doom and gloom's coming. The Dread Apparition has foreseen it. And just to be clear, I'm not knocking them for this. If even half of it is the plan, it's sound business choices, and at the end of the day, they're here to make money. If I were in their boots, I'd be planning the same thing out. Morning, Michael Holland. Yeah, it would behoove them to get their shit together and get into the digital space, whatever that is. They're not there. They're just not. The thing that comes closest to digital for them, outside of Magic, and specifically to role-playing games, is going to be their website, which is just a marketing website, and the licensing. Not even, yeah. Is it a licensing agreement for DM's Guild? I don't know. Releasing PDFs on DM's Guild of all the classics. That's their digital. That's their digital. Wizards of the Coast, the biggest role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game company in the world. That's their digital. Crazy. That's crazy. It's 2021. They're going to have a new edition in 2024. So, if you want to play D&D, you know, they had a subscription model at one point in time, right? D&D Insider. I was not a member. Anybody in the chat members of D&D Insider? You know, they had their forums. They had GleeMax at one time. It was just a disaster. there was was it Merrick? Merrick did an article. If you're not familiar with Merrick, he's on Twitter. He's been around for a while. He's, I think, written articles for EN World. And I think he wrote how he's like, the demise of the digital initiative at Wizards did not come as a surprise to him. He was talking about all the pains that came with trying to use their online tools and things of that nature, which were touted to be this like robust suite of stuff. And it never came to fruition. It was, and I had been on there, it was the forums and stuff like that. But it was a place where it was kind of touted where bloggers could come and, blog about their stuff. And, it's just, boy, they had some really big dreams. So I think, do they make their own virtual tabletop? Do they make it or do they buy it? That would be a question. Right now they're hiring, so they're probably looking to make it. It's a huge investment. They got to pour at least, a few million into it. I mean, just the labor alone, one senior developer out on the West Coast, assuming they get paid, their lead developer, they're going to get paid anywhere from 100 to 150 a year. You get probably even more, depending on the market. You got 3 of those. That's just salary. I mean, if you talk about benefits, you're probably paying them. I mean, you're doling out $200K a year for staff, for one staff member. You build out a team of 5. I mean, that's $1 million, give or take, probably, right? Because they're not all going to be at the same level, and they're not all going to be getting paid $150,000 a year. Can they afford it? Sure, Magic can bankroll it. Wizards is now a division of Hasbro, not a subsidiary. So Hasbro's got money that they can put towards it. So if they do, Owlbear, could they buy Owlbear Radio, buy it and enhance it? How crazy complex do they want to get? They got to implement the rules into the virtual tabletop. They just have to. What would be the point otherwise? And it's going to be only D&D. Unless they get crazy kooky and license it out or allow others to use it, which doesn't make any sense to them. You want to use that? Go use Roll20. You want to use that? Go use Owlbear Radio. You want to use that? Go use Astral. And going to this article or these tweets and speculation, Wizards has no incentive to say, hey, Roll20, here's all our stuff. Feel free to sell all of it. Or they could say, feel free to sell all of it and have it usable on your website, but we're not going to do any of the formatting for you. You got to do all that, which they probably do to this day anyway. And oh, by the way, we're going to make it as expensive as it is, and maybe it's cheaper to go with the D&D Wizards solution. I mean, you want to do it on Roll20, great. It's going to cost you more money, though. Foundry, I got to say, from a virtual tabletop perspective, Foundry's probably going to be the least impacted. You buy it, it's done. You can modify it, put your own rules in there. You can put D&D in there. There's people that have taken plugins and modules, browser extensions to be able to pull in JSON data from D&D Beyond to bring in characters, to bring in all the adventure information, maps, artwork, everything. That'll probably go bye-bye with maybe not, because here's the thing. If those rules I think there's a question on legality on that. So if you're not familiar with Foundry Virtual Tabletop, you buy a license for $50. You can install it locally, or you can have it hosted somewhere of your choosing, or you can sign up for a hosting plan. I have Foundry Virtual Tabletop. I've hosted it at AWS and at Amazon Web Services. I've hosted it on DigitalOcean on a droplet there, which is like a container for virtual private server. And then I've also hosted it currently right now. I'm using the Forge. Okay. So I've done it all through those channels, and I've hosted it at home. Now, I haven't played a game using all those platforms. Doesn't matter, regardless. Where am I going with this? Okay, so there was, and is, I think, a module and a browser extension that allows you to log into D&D Beyond. And when you log into D&D Beyond, the books that you have access to are there, right? You click on Curse of Strahd, and every chapter, every image, every map, is all chaptered out HTML, okay, and presented to you. So if it's presented to you in that format and you can read it from a browser, it's kind of there. Like, it can be parsed. So somebody used the browser extension to say, hey, if you log into your D&D Beyond, great. And then there's Foundry, and it acts as a bridge. So as long as you're logged in to D&D Beyond and you have your Foundry instance up and you have this browser extension, you click a couple buttons and it brings all that D&D Beyond information into Foundry. Now, some people would say, well, that's against the terms and conditions of D&D Beyond. And some people would say, I don't give a shit about any terms. I paid for it. It's mine. And if I can use it in this virtual tabletop environment, then great. Roll20 has the exact same thing. The only difference is that it's in Roll20's kind of file hierarchy, and you have to buy it. So if I want Tomb of Annihilation I don't even know if they have the core books. I don't really know if they need to, honestly, in Roll20, because you can reference all of it. But if you want to play Curse of Strahd and all the maps and all that stuff, Roll20 does it without importing the info, but then you have to pay for it on Roll20. So, take Tomb of Annihilation, for example. I bought the book. That thing's I think I paid $40 for it, maybe. It's close to 50. D&D Beyond. I bought it on D&D Beyond, so that's another $30. I'm up to 80 for one module that I already bought once. And I bought it on Roll20. Do I have the right to import it from D&D Beyond into Foundry? Legally, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know. But hey, you got three sources of my income, or three. You hit me up 3 times for money for that thing. So going back to the digital piece, I mean, I can't imagine that they're not going to do it where it's like, call it whatever, start coming up with names for it pretty soon. And you log in and you've got your books and you've got a virtual tabletop and everything is connected and everything just works and everything's referenced and everything's tied to the game edition. The tricky thing is, I mean, if they go that route, which I can't imagine they're not going to go that route, they're all in. Like, you can't go backwards. And they're going to do it for the next iteration. Well, guess what? It's not going to be the last iteration. And guess what? They're probably going to hit you up with a subscription fee because it's going to be a money generator that way. I think the software industry knows that subscriptions are the way to go. One of my worries about Foundry Virtual Tabletop is there is no subscription. Once I pay the $50, I own Foundry. That's it. I only need one license. Am I buying other modules? Yes. But even the other modules are like, I buy it for, Free League's Twilight 2000 or Forbidden Lands. I think Forbidden Lands cost me $11.75. And once I bought it, it's done. And it has all the books and tokens and trade dress, like in Foundry. But once I pay for it, it's done. So they don't get any return revenue out of that. It's finished. So by rights, I don't even have to buy the books if I didn't want to. As a matter of fact, if I buy Foundry, the official licensed Foundry module for Forbidden Lands, I'm telling you, I don't think it cost me more than $12, and I got the player's book, the GM's book, the Bitter Reach. I think those 3, and they're all in there. They're accessible and searchable, and some macros, and the map, and the dice, which came with dice that are nice, but it looks like it's themed appropriately. Yeah. So I could just read that book within Foundry and not buy the hardbacks that are sitting right there. But here's the thing. There's a lot of talk about money. And I think part of the problem with our hobby is nobody wants to spend any money on what we would find. I personally find value in stuff like that, right? We have folks that will buy they're going to go up to $70 video games, $70 for a major title, Call of Duty, insert title, whatever it is. You're going to pay $70 for that, and it's going to have 40 hours of gameplay. 60, I don't know, what's the average of a video game for gameplay? And then you're done. But that's completely fine because that's the way it is. And it doesn't seem, $60 when they moved from 60 to 70, I'm sure there was just an outrage, but it's been around $60 for a long time. They had said like 10, 15 years, titles haven't changed in price. They're a huge industry though, multi-billion-dollar industry. Tabletop gaming is not there. But it's just amazing where price comes into all this. Like there is just, and we talk, like some of you guys have disposable income. Like we're not 20-year-olds starving. We're not 15-year-old teenagers that don't have jobs, or we rely on allowances, or if we have a job, we're making, $12 an hour, $10 an hour. And that's got to go towards college or my car insurance because I got to pay for my own car insurance or whatever it is. We're not 20-year-old college students. Like we hold our own, and we complain about spending $60 on a rule book that we will get endless entertainment value out of if we play the fuck game. Got to play the game, which is funny because we'll complain about spending $60 on a rule book and we'll buy 5. We'll buy 5 of them, but we complain about the one being $50, $60. Come on. It is a theme, and there are folks that are in positions in their lives where they can't afford this stuff. I don't know. It's the tabletop role-playing game hobby and money is just weird. It's just strange. I'm telling you. I mean, people getting paid squat per word. That's a thing that people are saying, hey, come write for us because we pay more per word. Here's the thing. Nobody, if you don't want to write for Red Hat and do Fate, does it matter that they pay 10 cents, 12 cents, 15 cents a word or whatever the really good rate is? Monty Cook Games, same thing. Supposedly Monty Cook pays really well per word. I've heard. I don't know. Which is great. And I think that's the way it should be. Like there should be just kind of a standard, but I know there's some, independent publishers like the small, like me, Sean Kelly wants to write a game and I need help and I got to pay somebody to do it. How do I bankroll that? Oh, I don't know. Kickstarter, maybe. Maybe it's a Kickstarter is like the way to go. Is that the I don't know, be all end all? I don't know. Crowdfunding. Anyways, back to the subject. Money and subscription fee. People pay for subscription fees too for stuff. Adobe. I don't like paying them subscription fees. I try to find alternatives. That's one thing about the Apple ecosphere is if I buy Final Cut Pro, man, I could have bought that thing 10 years ago. Guess what? They're still updating it. I don't have to buy another version. That's the beauty of some of that. It's not going to happen with some of these. So Wizards of the Coast is going to come out with a digital platform, and they're going to incorporate everything under the sun that they can. And it's going to have certain tiers and things of that nature, I'm sure. Like, hey, are you going to be a player or GM? You're going to buy the books. Like, they should have been D&D Beyond. They should have been D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond they got to be the ones quaking in their shoes. And they're not even a virtual tabletop. So D&D Beyond could go bye-bye. Fandom might not collapse. Like that. I don't know much about Fandom at all, but Fandom owns a butt ton of properties. D&D, it's got to be profitable. I don't know how profitable. How much of the slice they get. But Wizards of the Coast they're going to go digital, and what does that look like? It's going to be a subscription model. You're going to be able to get their books. Maybe you have to have a subscription model to get the book, I would imagine. Now, that'd be the tricky thing, right? Can I get the 3 core books in digital format through this platform without having to pay a subscription model? I'll just pay for them. Like, I just want the digital things. I don't want them in print. I mean, even now, looking at print, like print and shipping, I mean, those are 2 things that will go bye-bye as far as cost of goods sold. And let's face it, there's going to be some Kickstarters that are going to get their butts whooped up on, because unless there is, the paper industry, I thought I had heard, this is speculation, but I had heard, producers of paper and cardboard are going to cardboard because there's a bigger demand for cardboard than there is for paper. Because everybody's shipping stuff and they need boxes. So, there's a shortage in paper. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I'm telling you, printing, it's costly. I mean, think about if you just go straight digital and don't have a print product. And you still keep the same price or increase it. I mean, there's people at Wizards that are thinking of this stuff because they have to. They're wanting, where's the bottom line? How do we increase profits and revenue? It's probably not printing books or shipping them. We're still using a distributor platform for RPG books. Not all. Not as much, I would imagine, like ACD, Blackhawk, and whatever else are out there. I'm sure Diamond, I don't know what major distributors out there. I'm sure that that they've had to see a hit because Free League, they need somewhat of a distributor, but let's face it, we place our order with Free League and then somebody fulfills it. Is that a distributor? Kind of sure, I suppose. And the distributor I'm talking about is Game Store. They get the product, they set it down. It is a distributor. Who am I kidding, right? It is a distributor because they can't fulfill their own stuff. A lot of them can't. Paizo does, right? They got a warehouse full of product. They got a customer service. I think they pack it all up, ship it out. Do they still have the subscription model at Paizo? I'm sure they do, right? Subscribe PDF, subscribe print and PDF. I don't even know what it is anymore. And I don't know if the price has changed at Paizo. I used to be a subscriber there. Okay, I think I got three complete campaign arcs through subscription at Paizo. And that was all them. They weren't using a third party. They weren't using, D&D Beyond. I don't know. Paizo was beating 4th edition, and I don't know how much of a windfall Pathfinder brought them. But it's unfortunate that, they have the video game, but they don't have their own character sheet. They don't have their own virtual tabletop. It's a huge investment. That is going to be the trick, is how is it laid out and presented, and the cost and what you get for it and all that stuff. You're going to get the books. You're going to get all the adventures. You're going to get all the supplements. That's all going to be offered. Then how does it tie into the virtual tabletop? Whoever is going to be the architect of that is going to have a good time. I hope they get the right people to do it, because they can make it super awesome. Like, some of the tabletops now, Roll20, Astral, what's the other one? What's the other big one? Damn it. Fantasy Grounds. Like, they are, there's parts of them that have a virtual tabletop. Owlbear to some degree. I wouldn't even put Owlbear in the same category, but they and most are probably catering to D&D because it's the big behemoth. So the D&D functionality of some of those are pretty robust. I think Fantasy Grounds, that is their core. It's called Fantasy Grounds. It's not called Modern Role-Playing Game Tabletop. And, there's a lot of automation. There's a lot of macros, blah, 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 blah. And I think Fantasy Grounds is kind of the exception, because that's where that's kind of their origins, I think, in their brain. Roll20 came as a virtual tabletop first, and then the game second. And the Roll20 piece hasn't changed. If you play Call of Cthulhu on there, you call D&D on there, you play what Alice is Missing, it's all kind of the same, except for maybe the presentation of the books and the materials. Alice is Missing's got cards that play a role, and some other things. Savage Worlds does a little bit in Benny's. But if you take a kind of a role-playing game, Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu, Dungeons and Dragons, old school stuff, you have a game master and the players. As long as you don't have chits or cards, and it's just straight dice, character sheet, and rules, the experience is relatively the same. The character sheet changes, and how you kind of tackle certain challenges within the game. Is it a skill check or is it this? Oh no, it's a skill test in this game and it's percentile, while this one is a skill check called a skill check, and that's a D20 roll based on a particular challenge rating, difficulty class, whatever. But my point is if they do it for D&D 5.56, whatever they call it, the next iteration in 2024, first of all, is it going to be ready by 2024? Secondly, if it's not ready, what does that look like? But also, they can make it into exactly what they want and how they want it to flow. It literally could be a completely different game as it's presented. Now, you don't want to make it a video game, but they could put it right in a lot of automation. What pain points are they going to try to solve? There's talks of, I don't want to prep, it takes too long. I don't want to memorize all the rules, there's just too many. Last week when I streamed, a lot of people, James Intricasso, posed on Twitter, hey, D&D players, if it's the only game you've ever played, what would it take for you to buy or play another game? To play another game, specifically. And a lot of them were, I don't want another game with a 300-page rule book. And they didn't even say another. They just said, I don't want a game with a 300-page rule book. I don't want to digest more stuff. If they do it digitally and they put it into a virtual tabletop and they incorporate an integration between the player character sheets, the resolution mechanics, and the rules to include some of the prep that the potential dungeon master has to do, and let's say they're going to come out with new modules or scenarios or some type of format, and maybe they allow you and I to write for it. So then they cut out DM's Guild and they put everything within that platform, and you can buy it. So there's a marketplace, and now Wizards is getting everything. Wizards isn't giving any more money to DM's Guild or One Bookshelf. Like me, it's all going into our pockets, except for maybe what we want to give you, whatever that slice might be. And even One Bookshelf is kind of high. Like, I think they make more money off a DM's Guild than the Apple Store does off an app. Right? Anybody publish for DM's Guild and how much of a slice that they take for a purchase? 60%? 50%? But they're going to fly under the radar. You know, Apple's come under fire with that, and Epic. So, and the game stores. And what do you do at the game stores? Like, is there a market for the game store? Because if D&D is not in the game store, they're going to stop stocking role-playing games. Oh, come on, Sean. That's ridiculous. Come on. That's nuts. That's too far. I go to my game store. They got different games on the shelf. Sure, they do. They're probably there for a while. That's not good. You don't want inventory sitting around for a long time. And what are the ones that you see? Star Wars, because it's the IP that people that know what it is. Who else? Maybe some Free League properties, right? Alien. People have to go in, recognize it, and they have to recognize it. If they don't recognize it, unless they're us, and I say us as in, well, I watch podcasts. I watch podcasts. I watch podcasts and listen to YouTube. I watch YouTube, listen to podcasts. I peruse. I know the different publishers and what they put out, and I could buy directly from them, like Modifius and Free League and, Paizo and all this. And I know I can go where to get them if I can't get them at my game store, or if I don't even have a game store. Noble Knight could carry it and send it out. Noble Knight's not going to probably give you a PDF. They do have Bits and Mortar at the retail store, which is interesting because like PDF is directly competing with them, right? Like if I buy something in PDF, it's not giving money to Noble Knight. Someday we will go paperless, Michael says, but I don't think we're close to that yet. I read an article last year that indicated print is doing better than it ever has done. Not enough have moved to digital only. And that may be true, but if we're talking about money and people are bitching about paying for a $60 book, and if the margin gets crunchier and crunchier and slimmer because Wizards, I mean, not even Wizards, think of the smaller fish that can't negotiate the volume that Wizards can. Like, that's a big deal. Hey, we want a print run of, 500,000. That's not a print run of 10,000. So they can say, hey, we're going to print 500,000 on the first run. After that, we plan on doing one every, if we do so much, we're going to do another one. If it bites into their margins, who's going to eat? They're not going to eat that. And for Wizards, they may be able to just it's a non-factor for them. Free League and those guys, who knows? I mean, it may be boutique. I don't know. So we complain about money, and then the cost of printing and shipping eats into the margins. They don't want. It's not that they won't. I don't think you're right, Michael. I don't think print's going anywhere, but it may be that they try to get you not to have printed books as much. Yeah, if you want them, they're available. Maybe they're more expensive. So They either give you an incentive to go to digital, which could be just cost and savings, or maybe it's value add stuff. Or they don't really give you an incentive and they don't give a shit. They're just going to jack up the print. You want print? Great. Here it is. That's it. You want it? It's going to cost you $70. I mean, we'll see. Print on demand. Wizards print on demand? Maybe. But then that's hard too. Like, what is the nuances of print on demand? You know, I don't know what the printers that drive-through uses, but, you know, if I had a printer in my basement, it's going to cost me shit tons of money. Like a quality press to print Wizards of the Coast product, and it's going to be Michael Holland's one order? Nah. Like, I don't know how those other printers place. I'm sure they're doing right. They got different runs. They've got other things that they're, you know, big print runs. But I don't know. I used to work for a printer. I used to work for a printer for 18 months. I wish I knew more about the printing industry. But I know they weren't doing well. And they were moving to web. And the website was more profitable. But it wasn't the be all end all. But I'll tell you, it's different selling, you know, a 5-figure website than an average print ticket of $300. For a corporation, it's nothing. Like, okay, great. Yeah, we need more brochures and business cards, but who's using that crap anymore? So they are going to do, they're going to do it. They're going to do that, but how is it going to come? How is it going to be packaged? Now, to this thread on Twitter, right? Well, like if we address this specifically, this is going to be like, this is all doom and gloom for Roll20 and everything else. Obsidian Portal, they're going to have a DM section, you know, that people can put in their notes, and Wizards of the Coast world.com, dndworld.com, whatever they name it. Start scooping up some domain names out there. That's how you do. I got to squat on some. That's my ticket to retirement. But who is it going to affect? You know, is Roll20 going to take such a hit that they'll go bye-bye? I don't know. However, the Orr Report, good transition into the Orr Report. Go through this every once in a while. The Orr Group owns Roll20, and they put out every quarter the numbers about their platform, specifically on who's playing what on their platform. Here's the most popular systems. What would be nice is to see Q1, Q2, prior Q4 of last year, blah, blah, blah. So this is the latest Q2, right? Q3 should be coming out pretty soon. I think this was released in September, so not too long ago. And this was, you know, September for Q2, which would make sense because it was end of August. So we'll probably see the end of Q3. I can imagine by November. 5e, 53%. So all the games being played on Roll20, 53, over half are 5th edition. Over half. Right? So that means that all the rest combined aren't more than 5e. That's crazy. That's crazy. So now the question is like, okay, out of all the folks that are playing D&D 5e, what are they using on Roll20? I mean, are they buying the books? Like, we're never going to get those probably details. Like, what's the marketplace look like? 10 million API used in games. This is kind of some cool stuff they put out. I got to give it to them, right? GMs whisper 25 million secrets to their players. Saw some significant change for a few titles, while others held steady or moved in onto only slightly. So 5e, for example, remains top, accounting for over half of the campaigns on Roll20. It's up up 1%. Almost. Very slight increase, but an increase. Next biggest system, no system at all, or at least not on record. Uncategorized refers to campaigns that opted not to use an accompanying character sheet with their games. What are they using it for then? Wow. Hopefully not the audio video, because it's terrible. Probably a whiteboard, my guess, right? Roll 20, throw the stuff down, handouts, that's it. You can have character sheets if you want. Otherwise, use them at your desk. Maybe the die roller. Can you imagine having roll 20 and all people are using it for are electronic dice roller? And a whiteboard? Not even a whiteboard. That's a sharing. Like, you don't want to pay for Zoom or you don't want to use Discord. Share feature. You want to use roll 20s, throwing it down thing. That's what Brett does. Right? He has character sheets, though. Harrigan Tube. Guten Morgen. Going through the Orr Report. If you've just dropped in the Orr Report, Orr Group owns roll 20, going through the numbers of Q2. Don't think we're going to find a lot of surprises, which ties into Wizards. Talking about Wizards in the next iteration of D&D and the digital platform. So is it going to impact Roll20 and some of these other ones? Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? We don't know. You know, there was a time when the marketplace on Roll20 didn't exist. Screenshotting maps, absolutely. Removing fog as they go. Yeah, fog of war, for sure. This doesn't necessarily indicate that no system was played, of course. Some players prefer physical character sheets. Hey! For example, but either way, saw significant growth. It's up from 15% to almost 20%. That's uncategorized, right? That's what they're referring to. That's a pretty good jump. Call of Cthulhu, third place. Increase from 10, almost 11, to 16%. That's Call of Cthulhu, man. I wonder why. Like, why? Why is that happening? Why are people falling into Call of Cthulhu? Is it the Sean's where they've played D&D and then they've discovered Call of Cthulhu and there's more role-playing pieces to it? Like, I want to be more of a role player than what I have found in my D&D games. That's what I've personally found. I don't think it's the be all end all necessarily, but third place, 10 to 16. That's big. Quarter. That's not year over year. That's one quarter. So if we looked at this a year ago, Q1 2020, right? Kind of getting into the thick of the pandemic. You know, what was the Call of Cthulhu market share on Roll20? Got to be less than this, right? 7%? So year over year, I can do this. Watch this. I could do this. We have the technology. Orr Group Roll20 Report Q2, right? 2021. 2020, probably, right? Would make sense. Q1 2020, Q2 2020. Look at this. Here we go. Call of Cthulhu at 8.46. 8.46%. They're at 16. Yeah, that's pretty good growth. All right. Year over year. D&D was at 53 a year ago. 53 a year ago. This quarter. 53.7 this quarter. Steady Eddie. Saturated? I don't know. We are now back to the present day here. Pathfinder. Whoop. Sorry, folks. Scrolling, getting you dizzy. Pathfinder 2nd edition, meanwhile, grew from 1.5 to 1.8. The other recent releases in Paizo for 2nd edition, including hotly anticipated Secrets of Magic, well-received Strength of Thousands Adventure Path. It'll be interesting if 2nd edition continues to climb. God, is that small? 1.8. Wow. It's just so mind-boggling to me when you think about D&D having 53% of Roll20. And then everything else is like, blah, blah. It's crazy. But, I don't know. This is the argument, right? Some people would say, well, Sean, this is what we're talking about. D&D does not have trickle-down economics. Like, our games aren't doing better because D&D is being big and huge. We're not seeing the rewards. Where's the windfall? Come on. That's what you're saying. The success of the industry depends on the success of D&D. I still stand by it. But yeah, it's Warhammer World of Darkness are tied for the next slot at 1.2. Whoosh. Whoosh. 3.5. Cranking it out. Growing from 0.98. 0.98. Not even a percent. Yeah, Darren Harrigan says, I think it's mind-blowing that D&D is only 53%. Well, could it be more? Like, some of that uncategorized. Could it be D&D 5e? They're just not using the sheet? Because they can't track it otherwise. Like, it kind of stipulates these percentages that we're putting out there are based on the character sheets that are being used for that system. Because if you create a game, you have to, like, if you want to, when you go on a Roll20, you pick the game that you're going to run because that brings in the character sheets for that game. So if I just picked unspecified and use it as a whiteboard, I keep throwing whiteboard. It's not where, I mean, I guess you can write on it, but it's really for handouts. And I'm going to roll over my cat. And you only use the die roller and maybe the AV. Again, I wouldn't use the AV. Then it doesn't fall into D&D. Falls into uncategorized. I don't think it's much bigger. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Also, I think with Roll20, we have to remember it's Roll20, right? So D&D, 53% of the games played on Roll20 are D&D 5e. That's not the whole hobby, right? But obviously, because people are playing 5e without Roll20. Rounding out the list, Starfinder at 0.7 and Star Wars at 0.6. Star Wars. The thing that you will find in a friendly local game store right next to maybe Pathfinder 2nd edition and D&D is going to be Star Wars. They're at 0.6%. And here's the reason why. I'm going to tell you why. Ready? This is the reason why Star Wars is not higher on Roll20. Because in order for you to use the character sheets with all the whiz-bang dice rolling feature is you have to have a paid version. Because the paid version gives you access to the API. If you don't have access to the API, you can't get the magical cool dice to work properly. So in order for me to roll or have a Star Wars game that had the sheet, which was created by the community, mind you, not by Roll20. You had to use an API. You had to add the code, put into the API so that everything can work properly. So people are like, screw it. So some of this would be interesting to know. Like, I don't know if it's going to talk about who's paying for it or not, because you can run quite a few games on this platform and not pay a dime, which is not great for business. And I think, I'm a big fan of Foundry. I paid for I paid a subscription for Roll20 for years. And only recently, until I found Foundry, did I cancel my subscription. I still got an account there because I got games and people ask me to play games, of course, right? I don't have to delete it. But I'm not paying for premium anymore. I do even have Tomb of Annihilation on there. I bought Alice is Missing. I did not buy. I'm using somebody else's account to run that. So my only paid content that I have on there is Tomb of Annihilation. But yeah, I don't have to pay for it. But going back to that, I don't know. I mean, I would look at their Twitter account and I would go through recently and see, because I saw an update somewhere that they were putting different dynamic lighting methods into Roll20. Like you could just drag and drop them onto the map and it creates dynamic lighting. Great, super awesome. And I thought to myself, I don't see a lot of those updates, like to the platform itself. So I just thought Roll20 is just not doing anything. Like their big emphasis on the marketplace. So I went through their Twitter account, and prior to that feature, they implemented something else. And I looked at it and said, well, how long ago did they do that? A year ago? And it was probably a month prior, maybe a few weeks. It wasn't too terribly long. It was something else that could come in handy and make the interface better, the quality of life on Roll20 better. Great. Because what I wanted to find out is, like, is Roll20 taking money from subscribers that it earns and putting it back into the platform to make it better? And if they don't, places like Foundry are going to come and eat them for dinner. Maybe not, but you rest on your laurels, you become Blockbuster. Like, it's just, hello. So it was nice to see that they were doing updates. But still, their Twitter account is pushing the marketplace like gangbusters. Like, buy this on there, buy this through us, run this game, buy everything Call of Cthulhu on here. And that's what they have. They have a lot of Call of Cthulhu products that are on there. The starter set, all that stuff. I don't even know if you can get the starter set for free on there. You might be able to. I don't think so. I don't know. But this Star Wars thing, yeah, it's crazy. Despite that it's remained in relatively the same spot dropping, its consistent popularity as well as the diversity of Star Wars titles out there has helped it hang tight to that number 10 slot. Well, dudes, if you allow or import the stuff for it to run properly as kind of okay, like just include it without having to have to have a premium account, Star Wars I think would be higher. I don't know, just speculating here. Powered by the Apocalypse games fell out of the top 10, just below Tormenta and Insane on the overall list at 0.4. That's all PBTA. However, the last edition we grouped PBTA with Dungeon World. This time they split them up. So if you combine the two Dungeon Worlds at 0.33, you'll hit the 0.74, which would bring it just above Starfinder. Still a dip from its 0.83 last quarter, but not as much. I got to hand it to the Orr Group for putting this shit out. They don't have to. So I give them that credit for sure. That's really awesome. No, I don't think they have revenues and profits in here. They don't have to. I don't think they're publicly traded. It's not an earnings call. So I don't think they put money in any of this. And that may be their way to do it. Like, hey, one way to kind of get around the money piece is just put out a bunch of data that people can absorb and not worry about the revenue or profit we make. And the Orr Group, I think, is they may be just are they just a holding company? I don't even know much about the Orr Group itself. I think they're just, what do they call, I can't remember it. Not an investment firm. What's the word I'm looking for? Places that buy a company, they just do buy a company and let it kind of go on its own, and then they try to flip it around 5 years later for more money without doing much. Private equity. Some they could be a private equity firm. I don't know. Games to watch. Beyond the top played systems on the site, there are a few up-and-comers worth watching moving forward. Blades in the Dark. And why? Because they got a movie coming out. TV show. Blades' share on Roll20 has held steady at 0.4 since the release of its official supported modules. With the recent greenlighting of an HBO show set in the shadowy world of Duskfall, we expect to see growth for the game well into 2021 and the next year. Well, will it? I don't know. Tales from the Loop. They had a show on Amazon. I think it went one season. It's done. I don't think, I think that's it. Like, Tales from the Loop's not going to be in here. HBO, a little different than Amazon Prime, maybe? We'll see. Insane. Don't even know this. The difficult to Google Insane is a multi-setting horror RPG, especially in Japan. It saw a growth from 0.4 to 0.5, rising a bit more than the other titles in its class as a result. So it's interesting because Call of Cthulhu is big in Japan, right? They must really like that horror genre. Because they say Call of Cthulhu is bigger there than D&D is in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, right? We brought up an article that said that. As a result, it has climbed its way to the 11th slot. 11th. You're just outside the top 10 with less than, you're almost at 0.5%. Oh my God. Mutants and Masterminds. Yeah, supers, baby. It's just like 0.2. Rising popularity. Just released the 3rd edition character sheet on the site, and it's a beauty. Okay, Ironsworn. Come on. Here's the full report, which I think probably is everything that we just went over. Look at that. If you are so inclined. That's it. That's it? 2 pages? 2 pages. Shit. Don't even bother. Just goes to rank and all of them. Wow. Crazy. Just crazy. Such a drop off. 1, 2, 3, boink. And think uncategorized is number 2. Can't even name the damn games. It's just not even in there. So that's it. That's the Orr Report for Q2. I don't know. So going back to what spurred this all, is the new version of D&D or whatever Wizards come out with gonna impact Roll20? And it depends on how much of that D&D play they're purchasing in the marketplace. I would say purchasing on the marketplace and paying for subscriptions, right? Because that's how Roll20 gets money. There's that's it, right? So if people are if they're playing 5e and they're not paying for a subscription or buying stuff in the marketplace, then the impact's not going to be a big deal to Roll20. It's definitely not going to impact Foundry, because I think a lot of people that are buying Foundry, yes, there's a huge amount of 5e players, I'm sure, but that's not the only thing being played on Foundry. I would say, I'm guessing, I wish Foundry, because there's no way for them to check, but it would be nice to know, even if they did a public survey, like they sent it out to everybody who's purchased a license through Foundry and just said, can you take our survey? What top 3 games are you running on our platform and rank them 1, 2, 3, highest to lowest? And then they consolidated it and just put it out there like, hey, based on a survey that we did of all our licenses, we've sold this amount of licenses, we've had this amount of respondents. Here are the top 3 games that everybody's put in there and put them down in percentage wise. See you, Harrigan. Ciao. Have a good weekend. So, it would be nice to know. I'm sure D&D is going to be up there, but I think the percentage might not be as steep. I don't know. It's just speculation. Who knows? Who knows? Fantasy Grounds might be, they were around before 5th edition. They're doing okay. But they also were able to do 3.5 or 4. Were they around 3.5 days? I think they were. Fantasy Grounds has been around for a long time. But if those like Astral, I think the ones that could be affected majorly is Fantasy Grounds, Astral. I don't know about Astral. Because I don't know how tied to D&D that is either. That's, I think, one bookshelves. But if you are Fantasy Grounds and a huge percentage of the stuff that you put out is for 5th edition, and because I think in Fantasy Grounds, I installed it, the Unity, and went in there. It's obviously it's called Fantasy Grounds. Again, it's not modern role-playing game grounds. You can play other games on it, but it's very heavy on the fantasy piece. And if you're playing fantasy, the big one is going to be 5th edition. So if they're not allowed for some reason, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They'll go to Pathfinder. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Only one way to find out. Only time will tell, ladies and gents. Only time will tell. But I could say this, it'll be interesting. What else is there? What else is there to talk about? I had those on the docket. I don't know if I was going to talk about anything else. I didn't have anything else on my agenda. I thought the 5th edition piece would take up most of the airtime. But I don't... What else is there to say? They're going to do a digital initiative. It's going to depend on what the scope of it is. It's going to be a walled garden. Probably be subscription-based. And it could even be like D&D Beyond. You could be a subscriber. I think you can buy stuff on D&D Beyond and not be a subscriber, right? Like I can buy the core books and not be a subscriber. I can just have an account. Maybe that's going to be it too. One thing I will say is that I did see a post on Twitter where it was like, can we get rid of the PDF? Which I think is interesting. We've talked about like innovation in the hobby. And like Notion, I've been using Notion for Delta Green that I'm running tomorrow, session 2, by the way. And finding information through something that's like Notion, it's a lot of legwork to put a lot of data into that. But is it, when are we going to get rid of the PDF? When is it going to be some type of HTML-based format that's just easy? It's just more relational. All the components are more relational than linear. Because role-playing books aren't novels. They're not novels, so they don't have to be linear. So can we take that out of it and make it, like, how do you make a reference doc online to be more reference than linear? And that's where the conundrum. Like a book, Well, that's kind of what a book is. It's page by page. God, we're just so stuck. Steve Jobs would come along and he'd throw some crazy, radical, nutty idea out there and say, this is the way it is. And we'd go, no, that's not going to work. That's ridiculous. And then we would do it and go, oh my God, that's great. Because people don't know, right? It goes back to, if Henry Ford, if they said, hey, if they wanted a better mode of transportation, they'd make a better buggy or a better horse. Like, you got to come up with the car. So we'll see. I don't know. We like our books. Had a lot of PDFs. I still like a book. I don't know why. And I don't mind reading them. Like, I don't mind reading a role-playing book like a book. Like, I'm okay with that. But at the table, when you're trying to reference stuff or you're trying to... SRDs were pretty good for a while. Like, very searchable. Web's very searchable. You can find 5e stuff. And guess what? Most of the rules that you Google for 5e, well, guess where it goes? Roll20. I don't know. So tomorrow I'm running Delta Green number 2, session 2. It's going okay. So if you're not familiar, this is part of Project BS, the Delta Green experiment. It may be a failed experiment. Not even out of the gates. Might be a failure. We'll see. I only say this and I put it out there because Brett, my counterpart, posted the game to start playing in October, Sundays, certain time frame. It's essentially the same day of the week and same time that I'm running my game. And I didn't get 20 people to volunteer. I got the people that volunteered are in the game. So I told Brett, heads up, man, I might have got the only 4 or 5 people that are available during that time that want to play. That's fine. I might move it then if I need to. Well, now it's, almost a few days from the middle of October. Crazy. And he doesn't have a time or cast the characters yet. And November is hunting season for him. So I asked him, I said, hey man, is this going to work? Are you going to pull this off? He's going to try. He hasn't thrown in the towel as of like yesterday. He's like, or Thursday maybe. It's like, nope, I want to try to make this happen and see what I can do. And for those of you not in the know, Brett and I host a podcast called Gaming NPS, and community members have found it an interesting approach to have Brett and I run the exact same scenario and compare and contrast our styles and how we handle some of the things that might come up. Then we're going to record them in audio and release them to everybody who wants to listen to them to listen to them. I have hope, but I also am a realistic guy. Like Brett, I'm like, dude, you got Thanksgiving holiday in November, and you've got at least 1 week of hunting. Like that's 2 weeks in November that aren't going to happen. So unless you kick this thing off, in 2 weeks from now, and run a session once a week, you can get 4 sessions in. He could run longer sessions, right? He could go 3 sessions and do them 6 hours each or whatever. I mean, I don't know. The thing with how, if he shortens it or he kind of changes, well, I'll just do 1 session. I'll do 1 day. Like I'm just going to pick Saturday. I'm going to do 1 shot and call it a day. It's going to screw with the comparison, because then he can't run this scenario in 1 day. He could, but then it's going to be way off. So I don't know if this thing's going to happen. I'll tell my players tomorrow, if you're not already in there. I know Phil, well, actually, I don't know if anybody today is watching from the group. But I'll tell the group tomorrow and just say, we'll still keep trucking. Like, I'm going to run it as long as they're willing to play it, and I'll record it just in case. But it's also hard to talk about it because I don't want to talk about it on the other show, because then it could potentially skew how Brett handles things. Like, what do you run into? Oh, that's you. Oh, hey, Larry. So what do you run into? Did you run into the same issues? Here's some of the things I'm running into. And Brett could go, oh, okay. I haven't started yet. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I talk to my players. So good to see you, Larry, by the way. So I think, and I don't want to not talk about it because I think it's a great game and it's a great group. We'll see. And it's not without, there's a couple things right now that I think would happen in any game I'd run. And one is when you're running a game like a one-shot or a very short session arc and you're not a consistent game group, you have the dynamics amongst the players that aren't the same as if you were running for the same game group for months or weeks or whatever, or years. So I think it's it's like at a con. Everybody sits down at the table, kind of, hey, so hi, how's it going? You here for this game? There's no connection amongst the players, typically. So I think the players are trying to find their footing amongst each other. That's not a big secret. That's, I think, to be expected. And then I think Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu is tricky to run because it's investigative and you can run into some red herrings, you can run into roadblocks. It's just, they are much more open than D&D, right? They're mission-based usually. Maybe not Call of Cthulhu as much, but Delta Green for sure. And sometimes that helps because it gives here's the deal. Here are your objectives. But there is still an where do we go? Like, what do we chase? Gumshoe from Pelgrim Press is supposed to address some of this, but Robin Laws, who came up with the Gumshoe system, and Ken Hite, who did Trail of Cthulhu. Ken Hite loves Cthulhu, but I think he found flaws in the clue pieces, right? You roll, you don't make the roll, you don't get the clue, you don't get the clue, you don't get to move on. And things come to a screeching halt. Hence, Gumshoe, you get all the clues. And if you roll and you make certain rolls, then you get more. You get more info, more details. I mean, I think if you're running Call of Cthulhu or even Delta Green and you're getting those snags, then you're probably, you need to loosen up more of the role piece determining whether somebody gets a clue. Like, if they need a clue and it needs to move the story forward, give it to them. Just run it like that. You don't have to have Gumshoe tell you this is the way it has to be because this is the mechanics that works. You can just do it in Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green. So it's the only one session in. I'm not overly concerned with it. I also have to get some notes to the group. Yeah. Where's Brian Laundry? Yeah. K. Briggs. I don't know. He could be anywhere. Called Delta Green. Brett's game would have to be evenings. Dad, Dorigo. And did you chime in on the forums? I think you might have. Like, hey, man, I could play, but it's on at evenings. Like, sometimes it's just, if Brett gets, like, here's the deal. We got 4 people, but they can all play on just Wednesday nights. Maybe that's enough, right? Who knows? So let them know if you haven't. But, at this rate, I'm going to be recording sessions. I'm going to be done, and he may just be kicking off session 1. So for us to talk about it, it's going to be a while. And then I got to remember 4, 5, 6 weeks ago when I talk about it, like, whoa, how did session 1, did you encounter this? Did you encounter that? Well, I don't, I got to make some mental notes about what's going on and some of the challenges and some of the good things that are occurring. We shall see. Haven't drove into the forums yet. Oh, I can provide an update to this. So BSer Con 2022, January, last weekend, I'm looking at warhorn.net to manage it. I think I have everything into place. No, he hasn't picked Wednesday night yet, Michael. Like, he hasn't changed his day of the week as far as I know. So going back to Brett, he's managing too much stuff. Like, he's got 2 games in his personal game group, and then he has his kids. Like, if you don't, all things being equal, you don't have room, it's not going to happen. So you're either going to make room or it's not going to happen. Yeah, I was just using that as an example, Michael. So, boom, 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 boom. Where was I? Shoot. Oh, BSRCon. Last weekend of January. I think I have warhorn.net set up. So here's the deal. It allows you to charge for badges. I don't know if it does it per game or session, or event. Event is weird because you can say, well, the con is an event. The games are games, like slots, whatever, or they're both intermixed, like both are events, right? Like you have a game event, and then you have the con event. I don't know. I'm not doing it to make money. I did make it so that if people can, so you can have people buy a badge, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weekend, right? You could set those levels up in Warhorn and set prices. And then you can set it so that unless they paid, because I think you can still get a badge, but not pay. So if you don't pay, you don't get to register for events. And that's a checkbox. Like you can forego that so they can register, not pay, but still sign up for events. That's the option I've chosen because I just want people to sign up. So we have, and then you can register for events. I was putting down like a $5 thing, like a $5 donation option, because I want to use that to boost the Discord server so everybody has a decent bandwidth, and if they're going to use it, then great. I want to probably throw some money at Warhorn to help, hey, thanks, because they take donations. They're not going to charge me anything to do any of this. So I'd like to throw them a bone for a donation. And then lastly, I'd like to donate to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's a personal cause of mine. A few years I raised some money for that charity and I got an award for the amount of money that I raised single-handedly. So I would like to do that as a kind of a charity and take the money and put it towards that. A couple things. I think if people throw in a few shekels, all that's for good reasons. Sean's not out to retire off it. And hopefully it also incentivizes people so that when they do sign up, they actually go and show up, right? It's very easy just to be like, I got no skin in the game. Screw it. It's Saturday. I'm going to go fishing and not show up for the game. And then you got game masters with like 2 people for a 5-player game, which is no good. I was thinking maybe $1 per game, but I don't know if I can do that. And that's what I would do if I could, like $1 per game. You want to play that game, you got to chip in $1. It's just enough. Because then if they don't show up, more than likely, I think there is some statistic around if anybody pays any little bit, even if it's a small amount, they are more vested and more likely to show up than for a free webinar or whatever. So it's underway. I have it up there. If people found the address, they could actually register a game. Also, what I found through Warhorn is you can run a con for one weekend, or you can have this open event thing that just goes on indefinitely, which would be great for our gaming moot. So if you're not familiar with what that is, if you want to play with fellow community members, the kind of thought process behind it was GMs would put out games that they would feel comfortable running, like their 1 or 2 or 3 kind of go-to games, so that they could share them with the community, right? Like, I really love Forbidden Lands. I'll run it for anybody. I just need 4 to 5 people. So rather than me go and trying to find 4 to 5 people, the 1, 2 Forbidden Land people that want to try the game but don't have the opportunity can go and roust up those 2 more, 3 more people, and then I'll run it for them. So we have a spreadsheet. There's the game master list, and then there's the player tab, and it's kind of this hit and miss. That is also another reason why this BSer Con is happening. Is 1, it's the year of the BSer, and we want to do it. And 2 is that it's a good way to play with other BSers, and with the gaming moot, there's a lot of like, I just can't do it on that night. I can't do it on that night. I want to play Cortex, but I can't. Herman's not there. He's not offering it during the time. And it's really just bringing it all together. So if we just all together come on a weekend and know that these games are all going to be offered, we can accommodate that one weekend. And whether we just do it in January or if we do it twice a year, January is a good time because I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. It gets cold in Wisconsin. I don't like to go anywhere. We're playing online anyway. Let's just make it happen. Nothing too crazy. Not going to have prizes and drawings and all, True Dungeon or any of these incentives. It's just like getting online, playing with some playing games with fellow BSers, members of the community and the How to RPG community. So yeah. Drigo, that's a tough one. I've brought up Forbidden Lands, and I was going to run it at Gamehole Con this year. If you haven't heard of Gamehole Con, go to gameholecon.com. It's a convention here in Madison in October in a couple weeks. It's going to be great. I will not be there, unfortunately, for personal reasons. But I was considering running it, but Forbidden Lands is a tough one to pull off for a one-shot because it's exploratory and it is really more kind of ongoing. And I'll tell you why. You could literally move 1 hex and spend, the group I'm running right now, Phil's in the chat, he was. They've been in the 1 hex exploring this one kind of area for the last 3 sessions. And each session is 3 hours. So you kind of have to go, how would you run for me personally, I would have to go, how do I want to do a Forbidden Lands con game for 4-hour slot? And it would probably be, okay, here's where everybody is. Where do you want to go? Okay, there's the travel aspect and the hex crawl, which is at its core of the game. And then there would probably have to be a site of some kind, right? Sites are dungeons, cities, villages, whatever. And then those contain certain elements of it, right? So if you go into a dungeon, it's, So Crypt of the Millified Mage, it's a relatively thinner book, and it's 77 pages. It has a few legends in the back, and then they have, how many sites in here? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sites in this book. Okay, one's a dungeon for sure. I haven't read the whole thing. And that would be it. Which you could do in Forbidden Lands, but you might not get through an entire site because sites can be a little robust. So, yeah. Well, the GBS moot is kind of one-shots, most of the stuff. That's really... So you are thinking, yes, for the Gaming and BS moot, Forbidden Lands would be cool to play. I'm saying it's good for longer than one shot. hence the Gaming NBS Moot is kind of set up to do one-shots. Although it wouldn't, I could easily put it out there for, hey, 4 to 6 sessions. We're going to play Forbidden Lands. I have brought up or have thought about making it a hex crawl with 2 groups, 3 groups. Like, I don't have a problem doing that. Problem is, me personally, I don't have enough time. And so I know I'm playing Cyberpunk Red. I mentioned this before. When the Cyberpunk Red game wraps up, I will probably drop that group and then focus in on some of the stuff that's on the Gaming NBS Moot and run other games and playing other games. That'll free me up one game every 2 weeks. And I can run Forbidden Lands. As long as I have a consistent same group, I can run multiple groups at the same time. Not a big deal. They run into each other fine. The only tricky thing would be time alignment, but that's not for you to worry about. But I think that would be a cool world for multiple groups. And it's not West Marches, right? Because I need a dedicated group. Because the one person not showing up or maybe showing up the next time, but not the other, right? West Marches, everybody's in the town. So if you're not going out or the session ends in a particular area or at the end and the next session continues, but that person or person 2 or 3 can't make it, it's not a big deal in a West Marches, but it's not a West Marches game. I wouldn't run it like a West Marches game. You could, nothing stopping you, but I'd rather just have the 4 people, maybe even 3. Could probably do 3, maybe. Depends on how deadly I make it. So yeah, Warhorn. I think that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use the Gaming Moot, and then that way it's always up, and people can just put events up there all the time, and then people can sign up for them. And they can use links, and it'll just be easier to manage. And if people don't sign up, I imagine the event either just goes past the event date and that's it, or that person can move the event date and not have to repost it, I would imagine, because the game master can manage it. And it's easier, right? Right now we got a forum post that explains it, and then it takes you to a spreadsheet, and you're kind of like, what's this thing? How does this work? Hey, you go here. Here is the Gaming NBS Moot, and then all the events that are listed that people want to run. Sign up, don't sign up. List the game, don't list the game. And then it's all managed right there. You could put in links on how you want to do it. Like, it's all just there. It's kind of removing it from our forums and putting it on there because it's got more time, date management than our forums do. So I think that'll work much nicer. So if it's a good solution for BSRCon and this, then I'd like to throw Warhorn a few bucks and say thanks. Maybe it's $5 a month. I don't know. Something for their troubles. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. Jeez. God. See, I knew he would be there. Sorry, buddy. Roll over my cat. Buddy, you cannot sit right next to the wheels of my thing. So I don't have anything else to really drum up other than what we've talked about. I want to get some videos down on the channel, running things through my brain. Got a couple people that have given me some suggestions and even had been willing to help provide some content, where there's a talk of analyzing a game, running a game, kind of a master class of game mastering. I don't know if it would be a master class in game mastering necessarily as much as, because that's, how do you define that? But it's also hey, somebody's going to run a game, dissecting how they run that game or run that scenario so that people can understand the choices they made, how the rules come into play, what are those rules. But I also don't want them to be 4 hours long. So I may tap a few others, like Craig Shipman. He doesn't know, but I might hit him up. He's done some actual plays. I may tap him and say, hey, I want to use your videos on my channel as comment, like as the, a game to observe and for us to comment on it. I'm gonna give you full credit. Like, Craig might be like, "Okay, that's cool," or he may like say, "No way, man." We'll see. I'm not quite sure how it's gonna lay out yet. It's still rolling around in my brain. I also want some actual plays. Would be nice. And a couple other things going through my brain, so we'll see. Yeah, can't roll the one on Keep Watch. Jumbo, he's always got to be right next to my chair, and then I'm like, if I move, it's like, I think I just nudged him, so he's a good loud cat sometimes. That's a good thing for him when those instances come up. But anyways, I am gonna throw in the towel for now. But I'll do some prepping for Delta Green tomorrow, and among other things. So thank you for showing up today. You all know that I stream here every Saturday at 8 a.m. Central Time. Feel free to show up. If you have topic suggestions, what have you, give us a like and subscribe. If you haven't already, I want to get some videos up there. Also, down below in the comments, I would be interested to know what your thoughts are on the next iteration of 5th edition. Just very briefly, do you think it's, how digital, and what does that look like? And do you think that is going to threaten other virtual tabletops if they do determine on going to a virtual tabletop? Will that tank Roll20 Fantasy Grounds? How will it impact the industry? So I will let you go. Have a good weekend. And remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. We'll check you later.